So welcome to the first of these abandoned stations, Brocklesby in North Lincolnshire.
Brocklesby is a station that lies between Barnetby and Heyborough stations, just to the west of the namesake Brocklesby Junction. To the left lies a freight-only curve towards Ulceby on the Barton line, and the right being used by passenger trains towards Grimsby and Cleethorpes. The station closed in 1993, however the platforms remain fully in situ, as well as the station building, which now serves as a private residence, and the old signal box, which actually remained in use only until December 2015.
A slightly funny thing here is that you can definitely tell where one of the entrances to the platforms used to be, because you can tell in this particular part of the wall the bricks look a lot newer than the bricks adjacent to it. So you can tell it's been sort of bricked up recently. So there's the entrance to this platform that has since been bricked up, but there is another one over here at the other side of the bridge where it still hasn't actually been blocked off. There is a gate which is to allow Network Rail workers to be able to go down onto the platform for whatever reason. I'd imagine probably its most common use would be to use the signal box, but given that's now also decommissioned, I don't really know. I suppose it's just an access point really more than anything. Well, here we are with a prime example of the left curve going off towards the Barton line. It's only ever used by freight trains going towards Immingham. There actually was a second station that was closed on the same day as Brocklesby, which was called Elsham Station, which is a bit further back there. It was after Barnetby Station towards Scunthorpe. It's not as impressive as this station here, of course. It's only a single platform that remains trackside. But I think Brocklesby looks a lot cooler. So there you have it, with the station building, the signal box, and both platforms. That is Brocklesby Station. Time to open up my eager eyes, because this station is Brightside.
The former Brightside station is located in northeast Sheffield, serving the area of the same name. Following the opening of Meadowhall Interchange only 600 metres down the line in 1990, Brightside became largely redundant, although did not immediately close and instead was reduced to only a very limited service. This continued until the station's eventual closure in 1995, leaving behind the remnants you see before you.
So this place is not exactly the nicest area of Sheffield. I'll try and keep my visit here brief. But yeah, so Brightside closed in 1995. But the main thing I find pretty cool about Brightside is that this that I'm currently standing on is the old station's footbridge that went between the platforms, that is now just used as a generic public pathway that goes over the railway line. So it's pretty awesome. Not only that though, but the stairs that lead down to the platforms are still here. Well, kind of. I mean, they are, you know. The steps themselves aren't there, but you can tell that stairs were here. And unlike Brocklesby, both sets of stairs are still here. They both still remain. Well, I mean, remain as in, like, they've not been completely removed. The handlebars are still there, close enough. But despite the, the whole station's disused state, this is still a very active railway line. There's trains coming by every couple of minutes, so this bridge is a nice place to, pop yourself and watch a bunch of diesel trains pass by, if that's your thing. It is a slight shame, however, that not really anything remains on the platforms, because all the waiting shelters, signs, lights, whatever, they were all removed a couple decades ago at this point, so on the platforms themselves there's not much to see, but all the platforms that are here do still all remain in situ. In situ platforms are just really cool. So that is Brightside Station in South Yorkshire. But there is actually another disused station, only a couple of miles from here. So, suppose I'll see you there. So what was only a 5-minute drive from Brightside Station, we now have Rotherham Masborough Station.
Rotherham Masborough is the former main station for Rotherham, around 700 metres west from the existing Rotherham Central Station, which itself was closed during the Beeching Acts. Following Rotherham Central's reopening in the late 1980s, Rotherham Masborough was subsequently closed, although the line itself remains actively used, seeing any long-distance trains that don't call at Rotherham Central.
It's a slightly funny thing. I genuinely didn't know of this station's existence. Originally, this video was going to be 3 cool abandoned stations, as in, you know, Brocklesby, Brightside, and upcoming 4th station you'll see. But I realised that this station, Rotherham Masborough, was right near it, and so I was like, oh, it's right next to it, sure, I'll add this into the video too. So here we have Rotherham Masborough. So I know right now, in present day, Rotherham Central is Rotherham's pretty much only proper station. But after the Beaching Acts, which closed Rotherham Central First Edition, this was Rotherham's main station. Until, you know, 1988 when it closed, and then Rotherham Central, when it reopened, became Rotherham's new main station. Unfortunately, this time there are no blocked up stairs to the platform that we can look at this time. But there is an old station building that we can look at. So yeah, Rotherham Masborough station building is now an Asian cuisine. It's one way to repurpose the building, I suppose. And here's the station from the other side, although I did prefer the other way because the low-angle winter sun is very much in my eyes here. So Rotherham Masborough as well also did have quite a few name changes in its lifetime. Originally it opened as Masborough because this area is called Masborough, but like Rotherham hadn't swelled to the size to encompass it yet, so it just opened as Masborough, then it became Masborough and Rotherham, then Rotherham and Masborough, then just Rotherham, then Rotherham Masborough, then closed. Bit of a mess. So yeah, huge big disused platforms, disused station building. That is Rotherham Masborough Station. And last but certainly not least, I've come to the middle of the Peak District, to what is probably my favourite disused station of the bunch. Welcome to Woodhead Station.
Woodhead Station lies in the Peak District, on a section of former railway line between Hadfield and Penistone. The station closed to passenger services in 1970, and then freight services around a decade later, with track lifting occurring not long after. Despite this, the 2 platforms do still remain, which are rather fun to walk on if I do say so myself. Right in front of the former platforms are the iconic Woodhead tunnels. There'll be more on that shortly. The former trackbed, by the way, now serves as part of the Transpennine Trail.
So this part of former trackbed that is disused between Hadfield and Penistone forms part of the Transpennine Trail, which is quite largely formed of disused railway lines. I made a video about this on the channel at some point with the, I think it was the Warrington to Altrincham Railway. I made a video exploring all of that. But yeah, as you keep walking down this trail, you come out here and bam, you're just hit with huge disused station and 3 different disused tunnels. It's really quite the sight to behold. I do also love the in-situ platforms that are still here that you can just walk on. It's very strange, like, 'cause there's not many, or like the vast majority of disused stations, the platforms are also demolished. But here, no, they're still here, and you can just stand on them and pretend you're waiting for a train. Although, if I were to wait, I would be waiting for a very, very, very long time. And so yeah, here's probably the most iconic thing about Woodhead Station here, is the 3 disused tunnels that you have. I would try to get a closer look at them, but unfortunately I do have to stand back here because the gate here is padlocked shut, and so I assume I'm not allowed to go stand in there, so I'll abide by their wishes. So, Woodhead Tunnels 1, 2, and Tunnel 3. There is a hell of a long story with these tunnels. So Woodhead Tunnels 1 and 2. Built in the mid-19th century, both housing 1 track each. At their time of construction, they were some of the longest railway tunnels in the world, at over 3 miles long. They were all blasted out with gunpowder and then excavated. Yeah, the mid-19th century was a hell of a time. However, with time, the condition of the tunnels did gradually worsen and worsen, and in the mid-20th century, these tunnels were closed, and in 1953, Woodhead Tunnel 3 was constructed. And so once Woodhead 3 opened, Woodheads 1 and 2 ended up finding a new use in housing power cables. But then, the time dreaded by all rail nerds, the 1960s rolled around. And you know what the 1960s means? The good old beaching axe. But the thing is, this line was not actually originally earmarked for closure in the Beeching Acts. It was instead meant to be the Hope Valley line, although in the end, the Hope Valley line was retained, and the Woodhead line was closed to passenger services in 1970. Meaning, the Woodhead 3, this brand spanking new tunnel, was only used for 17 years in passenger services before they were withdrawn. And whilst the line initially, yes, was retained for freight services, the line also closed to freight in 1981, meaning that the entire railway life cycle of this tunnel was only 28 years, which is honestly very tragic. It's like all this effort for not even 3 decades of use. But oh no, I am not done yet. The story gets even worse. So at this point in the story, Woodhead 1 and 2 are still being used to house the cables. And with time, slowly but surely, people try to do campaigns to get this line reopened, with good reason. But in 2008, the very, very, very controversial decision was made to, due to deteriorating conditions of Woodhead 1 and 2, instead move the cables from 1 and 2 and put them into Tunnel 3, which was then completed in 2016, which now makes reopening the line through the tunnel a really, really big pain in the arse. So it's looking infinitesimally unlikely now that this line will ever reopen, simply because of all the cables getting redirected into Woodhead 3. Which is a real shame. And so that is the tragic tale of Woodhead Station. Probably one of my favourite disused stations in the country. So that was 4 disused stations in Great Britain that I think are pretty cool. Probably a kind of different video than I normally do, so do let me know what you thought of it. It's a bit of an experimental style. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
And of course, a huge shout out to all my patrons and channel members listed on screen now. Thank you for supporting the channel.